So the second Sikha of Parshas Bamidbar, there's many ways to unpack it. It's quite an extensive Sikha. It's a full, unlike the Bamidbar Aleph, which is relatively straightforward, this is layer after layer after layer. But one way of unpacking the Sikha, and I'm going to give credit to a certain sefer in a moment, is to focus on the main character that the Rebbe builds the Sikha around. And it's pretty much the only time in the Rebbe's Torah that the Rebbe really goes and explores this relatively unknown Tana, Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom. And that leads me to the sefer. Recently, a sefer came out. It's called Mishnas Menachem. It's actually written by one of the shluchim here in South Africa, Pesach Fishman. Incredible, two sefer set. And what he does is he looks at Tanoim and Amiroim and goes through whatever the Rebbe says about them. So, for example, he has a small little section on Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom and kind of focuses on the points that the Rebbe brings out in the final paragraph that's, to take home lessons. And interesting, it's pretty much the only reference he has, and I trust him because he did the research, so it's the only reference that we have to Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom in the Rebbe's Torah, where the Rebbe actually goes and explains who this kind of is. In general, Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom, just to give you some context, is an Amoira of Eretz Yisrael, so the Talmud Yerushalmi, in the 5th generation, and Dor Chamish is pretty much as it's wrapping up. Kanire Talmidei Shel Rabbi Yossi, and he was a chaver of Pinchas, and most of his statements are in Agada, not necessarily in Halacha, in Agada. Now, in this Sikha, the Rebbe brings quite a few of his quotes. First and foremost, the fact that Rashi brings him. And then the Rebbe says, you would have said that maybe that he was referring to another statement that Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom said about Yitzchak, b'miktzas Yitzchak, and that Yitzchak yikar l'chazara, that in other words, it's only Yitzchak, so the Rebbe said he would have thought that that's the pshat, and the Rebbe said, oh, but the Tiritz is nicht aufgehalten. Then the Rebbe brought another quote of Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom earlier in the Sikha in Sif Yud, Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom, ki sheishes chadashim yashav sham yoya v'chol Yisrael, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Al tisgadu bam, I told you don't, start up with them, and you wanted, so I'm not going to count those 6 months. So the Rebbe brings another quote of Rabbi Yehuda ben Sholom. Interesting that quote is from Agada, and the quote in the Dorim is also about Agada, the Yerushalmi, that Ein Yishmael called in the he's not one of the children, and the one that we learned in the Sikha, Lamud Hu Oisa Shevet, Lios Nimna Min HaBeten, is also Agada. And very much like, if you want, like, this is the one Sikha where the Rebbe actually explores this one relatively unknown Tana. Remember, I'll be honest, I'd never really heard of this Tana until I came over here, because it's a Yerushalmi Tana. And unfortunately, we don't learn so much to Yerushalmi. So what did the Rebbe say about this Tana for us to wrap up and learn? That the Rebbe says like this: Yehuda is Miloshin Hoida. And that's connected to spheres Hamalchus and Kabbalah Sod. Sholom, it shows on Torah. Shenidna Lasses Sholom Ba'olam. Sholom is Shaykh to Tifedes, which brings together, makes a tivuch between Chesed and Gvura. And the name Yehuda ben Sholom expresses the chibur of spheres Hamalchus with Kabbalah's oil, that's Yehuda, together with Tifedes and Torah, which is Sholom. So Malchus, Kabbalah's oil, is Yehuda, and Tifedes and Torah is Sholom. And within Torah itself, the Rebbe finished off the Sikha is to connect Galia, the Torah, Nigla, which is Malchus, which comes from Yehuda, connected to the name Yehuda, together with Pnimius HaTorah, which is Tifedes, which is Shaykh to Sholom, as the Rebbe says, Tiferes, Leis Taman, Leis Kasha, Leis Machlekes, the ultimate Sholom. Now, I could just recommend this incredible sefer that just came out. Again, Mishnas Menachem. Encourage you to learn it. And it also just based on the Sefer, it allowed me to see the Sikh in a different perspective. Instead of it just being a Rashi Sikh, it's exploring a Mahalach of Rabbi Yehuda and Sholom, seeing a Mahalach in his Tnua. The Rebbe brings the idea that, whether the point first about Melech David is thus Alein Sheinish, the mere fact that you're not mentioned. So just the mere fact that you're mentioned gives you either existence or non-existence. And then the idea of Yitzchak, the Miktsas Yitzchak, etc. Each one of the Nekudas that Rebbe brings out is building up this incredible Amoira of Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yitzchak Bered Sholom.